I'm Lyle Lovett. This is a place you may not recognize, but spend a little time here, and I think you'll find it familiar, even comforting. We humans have always made grasslands our home. This is America's tallgrass prairie. These grasses created the soils that provide most of our food and play a major part in purifying our air. What surprised me is it's the most endangered ecosystem on our continent. This is a scientific story, but it's also a story about people who feel their souls in this stretch of land. Welcome to the land of the tall grass.
It's a place we rarely think about, perhaps we never learned about, but somewhere in our collective psyche, it is there. A hazy, calming memory of a place, a swaddling, sun-bathed land of grasses. We Americans are a people of technology, of power and capital and progress. But we are, first, like all humans, a people of the grass. Where did your last meal come from? Before the fast food line or the grocery counter? What produced the food that fueled your day? What was the content of your most recent breath of air? What cleans that air you take into your body? Many answers to these questions lie in the heart of our continent, in a large swath of land between the shadow of the Rocky Mountains and the deciduous forests of the Appalachians. It provides most of the bread, grains, cereals, and beef we put on our tables. In addition, it pulls tremendous amounts of carbon from the air and through deep, dense roots deposits it into the soil. There it nourishes the native grasses that in their turn are food for cattle. The rich soil formed by these grasses nourishes the domesticated grasses like corn and wheat as well. In a blessed paradox, this carbon placed into our atmosphere by our industrialized world is pulled from the atmosphere by these plants and becomes fuel for our sustenance and processor of the oxygen we depend upon for our very survival. The place is America's grassland, which has at its heart the rolling hills of the tallgrass prairie. At first glance, it may appear empty, monotonous, but its beauty is subtle and glorious. Up until 150 years ago, it was grass. And for scores of thousands of years before that, the same. Nature tended her grasses on this continent just as with the other grasslands on the planet, with fire and the appetites of large grazing animals. Today, North America's most endangered ecosystem is the tallgrass prairie. Less than 5% of its once vast reaches is left standing. In 150 years, all but 5% of the tallgrass prairie was converted to the breadbasket of the world. But in the aptly named Flint Hills of Kansas and Oklahoma, the shallow, rocky soil was virtually impervious to the plow. As rich as other parts of the prairie, it was much shallower. Huge deposits of limestone lay concealed only inches beneath the surface.
In this fair land I'll stay no more. Here labor is in vain.
But the land was quickly played out. Most of the small farmsteads in the Flint Hills were abandoned within a few generations.
I stand ready on the shore to cross the inland sea.
These untamed lands were to provide a different value to the people of the grass, the production of beef.
We basically try to devise systems that will mimic the early grazing of the buffalo and let the grasses rest, let the roots, which have reserves of carbohydrates in them, build up during certain times of the year so that that plant can be healthy the next spring when it starts growing again.
We've had years where you could sit on a horse and the grass will touch the top of your hat. It will grow 6-8 foot tall on a good year with good rain. And our theory is that we don't really grow cattle. What we grow is grass. and we're using the cattle to harvest that grass. And that's a miracle in itself to us because the grass is not useful to people.
Their numbers are few, but the rangeland they manage is vast. Hundreds of thousands of square miles of pristine, rejuvenating solar collector in the Flint Hills of Kansas and the Osage Hills of Oklahoma. Scientists now say it is one of the most positive relationships between humans and land on the planet. Ironically, in many ways it harkens back to the relationship between the Plains Indians and the land. The face of this conservation hero? None other than the American rancher. In this day of clear-cut rainforests and toxic emissions, this is an economic story in which the capitalist and the conservationist are often one and the same. Those who manage their investment in soil and grass do so mainly without fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides. Only in the Flint Hills and Osage Hills did ranching remain dominant. It would take decades of trial and error by cattlemen and exhaustive scrutiny by scientists to determine that the key to stewardship of this land was not to concentrate on raising cattle, but on raising grass.
When you're out there every day, you connect with the land. It's not just a piece of dirt. It's yours, and it's something you want to preserve, to leave better for the people after you. You know, really, we don't own it. We kind of take care of it.
Scientists tell us that a significant tract of good soil, even if properly reseeded and religiously tended, would require at least several hundred years before it would once again become a true prairie. So to let it be overrun is a virtual writ of extinction for this crucial ecosystem. The grasslands of our world provide a large percentage of our clean air and our food, both meat and grains. Because of fences and highways in cities, the prairies no longer exist in vast, uninterrupted stretches. Herds of grazers can no longer migrate across them. Natural fires are quickly impeded. The tallgrass prairie requires our active stewardship. If we fence it, if we try to preserve it by leaving it alone, it'll be gone in a generation. The soils of former and existing grasslands are the storehouse for the next millennium. They just may be the most important bulwark against our extinction.
Over time, this prairie has been home to dozens of Native American tribes, then waves of homesteaders. There have been bloody clashes over its incredibly fertile loam and volumes written on its subtle beauty. What was once native grasses has been mostly turned over to domesticated ones. What remains is truly a beautiful spot on earth, worthy of close, loving examination. That's why I got involved. Its story is our story. I hope for generations to come.